Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam saranam sangam saranam gacchami. So welcome everyone. Very glad that you're here in this moment and that you are interested to practice meditation. When we show up to a Buddhist temple or to a meditation center or to a meditation hall, it is just like we are entering the world of meditation. So whatever we see or hear or experience at the meditation center or when we go out to find a secluded place to practice meditation, we can consider quite seriously that we are not in the world of normal activities, such as eating at McDonald's or ordering food at a restaurant. Of course, we should not cling to any duality that it's like this or it's like that, because it's not something we can explain. We can point to different things. We can point to different experiences, different phenomena, and we may be very curious about those thoughts or situations that we come across or that come across us as individuals, experiencers. But if we try to figure out particular phenomena or figure out particular situations, we will not be successful. For many hundreds and hundreds, thousands of years, philosophers and scientists and religious people of different traditions have tried to figure out what's going on. What's going on in Ireland, what's going on in Italy, what's going on in America, what's going on in Myanmar, and what do we have to show for it? Hot water and many nice things. But those things, those phenomena, those situations or philosophies or experiences, they don't give us freedom. And I think it could be said we can get more freedom from a tree than we can from any religion. So what does that say about trees? What does that say about religions? And this world of meditation, it's very much like the world of our life, our normal everyday life, the normal way that we handle things and experience things and see ourselves and see other people. But this world of meditation is limitless. It doesn't have any bounds. It is like a well that cannot be dried out. It is free of time. It is free of depletion. And yet here it is immediately. So this daily life that so many people are bound by, either by inner contracts or outer contracts, the world of meditation, we don't want to incorporate meditation into our daily life, because meditation is actually a freedom from this false sense of self that the daily life feeds off of. And that limitlessness, that originalness, is really important to emphasize, because a lot of people get the wrong idea about Buddhism or meditation or Zen because of the appearances, the words, the phrases, the colors, the monks, the temples, the different groups and different traditions. People get this idea that Buddhism is something, or that the way is something. And things we can understand. Things are manipulatable, controllable, manageable. But the Buddha Dharma cannot be grasped. In the same way that your normal, ordinary mind, your direct experience, cannot be grasped. We can make up a story about this experience or certain elements of this experience, such as the sight element, or the hearing, the sound element, or the sense of the body. And then once we kind of pick and choose one of these elements, one of these experiences, and we pick and choose many very quickly, continuously, but once we pick one, the I can arise. This notion of I, this sense of separateness that at its root is completely fallible. So that if we want to be right or wrong or debate about something, it can go on for eons. And it leads to war, leads to violence. The history of humanity, this history of violence. So the act of meditation is a real act of nonviolence. It is an act of forgiveness and purification, we can say. In a very practical way, it's like that. And we may use every sense, every sight, every sound, every pinpoint of our attention can be used as this bearer of returning to the dormancy of involvements, dormancy of the intellect, dormancy of discrimination, picking and choosing this or that, 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 this or that. I mean, how long do you want to go on doing that? Really? We say success or failure, we say progress or going backwards as a way of communication, as a way of communication with this sense of I. But if we can step back from this identification with what we are experiencing, then we don't need to justify anything. We don't need to prove anything. We don't need to communicate about anything. We don't need to understand anything. We don't even need to understand everything, because everything is immediately. And this immediately, it applies to the impermanence of the body and mind. It points to the impermanence of whatever it is that you think is important. So if you are able to practice meditation, if you're able to step back from this kind of insanity lifestyle that so much of us have been trapped in for such a long time, we will start to see how subtle, how immediate, how expansive, how uncomprehendable, ungraspable reality actually is already. But not many people believe in this. It is said that not many people believe in cause and effect. So why wouldn't people believe in cause and effect? Because it is imperceptibly subtle. Imperceptibly subtle. And it doesn't allow for the appropriation of authority onto separate self-entities. And when we are in a position of authority, maybe we like it. And when we are not in a position of authority, maybe we don't like it. But regardless, it is the liking and disliking that is the issue. It is not the authority. The same goes for anything. The person has a problem, the place has a problem, the situation has a problem. It is just the ego grasping for straws to get a hold of you. And that you is everything that is already resolved. In the same way that when someone dies, their life is resolved. Their body, their problems, their ideas are resolved. This is why so many humans throughout history have been so passionate about war, because of the resolution of death. But impermanence is already taking place. Every sense of I, every sense of self, every moment by moment experience is arising and passing away without any trouble. We talked about this yesterday, concerned with nature not holding these values of better or worse. A giraffe is better than a hippo. It doesn't exist in nature. Because we have started, whatever it is, we've started listening to something, we've started doing something, we've started believing something or involved with something, because we've started, we should stop. Because you're not going to do it forever, for sure. It's not like you can't start something again once you've stopped it. So once you've started something, if you've started something, some involvement with a sense, stop. Step back. And then once you have stopped, once you have stepped back, don't start. Problem solved. Immediately. And these ghosts, these dreams, these entities, these words and phrases, these stories that torment us, that cloud the clarity of the mind, they are only to be used. They are only to be experienced. They are only to be abandoned. Not attached to. Don't let them pull you by the chain. Do whatever you want to do, freely, without attachment. And because you are doing without attachment, what you do will be very different than what you would do if you were doing with attachment already. Trying to describe meditation, it's like trying to describe everything. It's like trying to describe the universe. It is worthless. If you try to understand what meditation is, then you will not meditate. In the same way that if you are driving a car very fast, going down a busy road, and you try to understand what brakes are, what's going to happen? Crash, disaster. So rather than trying to understand meditation, you should try to practice meditation. And when and where can you practice meditation? Only now. When and where do you have the possibility to breathe? Only now. When and where do you have the possibility to see or to hear? Only now. If you start hearing what's in the past or you start hearing what's in the future, you may need to seek out some support. The same with seeing. So Buddhism is not dream interpretation, and it's also not reality interpretation or the explanation of complicated thinking. Buddhism has been used to do that by different traditions and groups at certain times, but that is not the primary purpose of Buddhism. The Buddha was not an explainer. The Buddha was a pointer to your original mind. The mind that does not reach out, does not seek out, does not grasp out for someone or something or some situation or some experience. And because we are so twisted and tangled in this narrative of ourselves as a part of this world, as a part of the environment, The stepping back will help us to see how tangled we are inside of ourselves. So when a problem arises, when a difficulty arises, when a confusion arises, don't look outside. Don't look towards some problem with what's going on. Examine yourself. Examine your heart, examine your body, examine your mind. And in this way, you may become very powerful. You may become very free if you learn how to do this. Understanding that the people we see in front of us, they seem to be alive, but they may not be alive a few moments from now. Understanding that if you can't see someone, or you can't see the deer or the lizard on a street 5 miles away, where is it? It's in your mind. But there is a created mind or an apparent mind that's very much like a movie. We've got a producer, we've got a director, it's clear we've got a costume designer. But this original mind or original nature, more like smoke, more like fire, more like a clear blue sky, more like nature than it is produced or directed or contrived in any way. Now this nature is clearly inclusive of contrivance, inclusive of all the good things and all the bad things, but this nature does not operate by the laws of discrimination. It does not operate by the laws of better or worse. And it may be strange for us to digest that, because if not better and worse, then what is this? Who am I? What's going on in my life? Today we will have these questions answered by the great masters of old. So this is a collection of Zen teachings from many Zen masters from ancient China, translated by Thomas Cleary, who's very skillful to transmit these experiences and these records from the ancient Zen masters. Try to keep in mind that when we practice meditation, the intention is enough. Don't bring the intention to understand, don't bring the intention to awaken or to get enlightened, don't bring the intention to do something in particular, to build something or develop something, but just the intention is enough, and then we work through that together as practitioners on the path. And it's very important to understand that when we listen to these records. And I can maybe set the scene a little bit. These Buddhist monasteries in ancient China, and wooden meditation halls and Zen masters and monks and snow and gibbons and plums and all of these kinds of things, and on to Zen Master Deshan addresses an assembly. Deshan said to an assembly, "Tonight I won't answer anything. Anyone who asks a question gets a beating." So what could that mean, that kind of approach? Because let's say this is a Buddhist monk, a Chan monk. They're very enlightened, very wise, very compassionate. They're teaching students. They're helping out at a monastery. There's an assembly of people. So there's something that a monk or a teacher is supposed to say, right? And it certainly isn't this. Deshan addresses an assembly. Deshan said to an assembly, "Tonight I won't answer anything. Anyone who asks a question gets a beating." Then a monk came forward and bowed. Deshan immediately hit him. The monk said, "I haven't even asked anything yet." Deshan said, "Where are you from?" The monk said, "Korea." Deshan said, "You deserved a beating before you stepped onto the boat." So if this enlightenment, if this waking up is not a matter of grasping something or attaining something or getting something, if there isn't someone who can be enlightened, then why give them a beating? Why not just dance around in circles and sing songs and say, "Hey, we're already enlightened, we're no one. Everything is jazz already." I'll read it again. This time there's a little bit of commentary, verse by verse. Chan Master Deshan said to an assembly, "Tonight I won't answer anything. The words are still in our ears. Anyone who asks a question gets a beating. Striking, I say, taken a beating." Then a monk came forward and bowed. Deshan immediately hit him. A fellow who has forgotten what preceded and misses what comes after. The monk said, "I haven't even asked anything yet." That's something. Deshan said, "Where are you from?" He switches his eyes. The monk said, "Korea." Now he switches Deshan's eyes. Deshan said, "You deserved a beating before you stepped onto the boat." The likes of Deshan acts this way. Fayan cited this and said, "This way Deshan's talk is dualistic." Yuming cited this and said, "This way Deshan has a dragon's head but a snake's tail." Zhu Do cited this and said, "The two veterans, while skillfully trimming the long and augmenting the short, gave up the heavy and went along with the light." If you want to see Deshan, this won't yet do. Why? Deshan is like one with authority over external affairs, having a sword that does not bring on disorder, even when what is to be stopped is not stopped. Do you want to see the Korean monk? He is just a blind fellow bumping into a pillar. If we are not willing, if we do not dare to fail, if we do not dare to not understand, then how are we going to leave our home? How are we going to meet other people? How are we going to help others? You must, if you want to walk this path and you want to experience some kind of success, whatever that may be, you must dare to not understand. Your understanding, my understanding, people's understanding is ignorance. And it most often goes right along with a lot of attachment. Yuan Wu said, when the ancients brought up a device or a perspective, it was all to illustrate this matter. But before the world-honored one had held up a flower, what is the principle? Since then, that's why we buy the hat to fit the head, size up the assembly to give directions. Nowadays, they just memorize 1,000,000 points, making complications. When will it ever end? Too much information and too much interpretation creates more and more affliction. When the ancients happened to cite an old exemplary story and make a verse on it, they had to be able to set forth the intent of the people of old. Only then was it appropriate to take it up. As for Deshan, he was originally a lecturer on the Diamond Sutra from Western Shu. Hearing that the Chan sect of the South was flourishing, he said, "These devils of the South are so successful," and consequently stopped lecturing, dismissed his students, and took his commentaries to refute the Chan school. Then he was greatly enlightened by Long Tan's words, and later lived on Mount Day. Every 3 days he'd search the hall, and whenever he found any writings, he'd burn them. He would beat the wind and rain all the time, and eventually produced Yantou and Zhu Feng, who were like dragons and tigers. When it came to his making complications, he had his own special quality. One day he said to the assembly, "Just have nothing in your mind, and no mind in things. Then you will be empty and spiritual, calm and sublime. Grasping at a voice and chasing echoes wearies your mind. When you wake up from a dream, you realize it isn't so. And wakefulness isn't awakening either." One day, Yantou came seeking. As soon as he had spread out his seating cloth, Deshan tossed it down the stairs with his staff. Yantou went down, gathered it up, and then went into the hall. The next day he went back up to inquire. As he stood by, Deshan said, "Where did you learn this empty-headedness?" Yantou said, "I don't dare deceive myself." Deshan said, "Someday you'll shit on my head." Now tell me, what did he see that he didn't hit him? Isn't it because he had something special about him that it could be so? One day when Yantou came, as soon as he straddled the threshold, he asked, "Is this ordinary or holy?" Deshan immediately shouted, Yanto thereupon bowed. Now tell me, what did that father and son see that was so special? My late teacher Wu Zu said, since he opened shop, why then no reply? Now tell me, where is Deshan's meaning? This monk was also quite extraordinary, bounding out from the crowd and bowing. Deshan immediately hit him, like a hawk catching a sparrow, like a falcon catching a dove. As for Fayan's citing this and saying, this way Deshan's talk is dualistic, this can be called settling the case according to the facts. Yuan Ming cited it and said, this way Deshan has a dragon's head but a snake's tail. This too is observing the hole to put in a peg. Now how do you understand this case? If you understand in terms of dualism, you are out of touch. If you understand in terms of a dragon's head but a snake's tail, you're out of touch. If you do not understand this way, then how, after all? Tell me, why did those two veterans cite this way? Try to see. Let's try to see. A dragon's head and a snake's tail. Dualistic thinking. An ancient said, lions bite people, mad dogs chase clods. Another way this is said is, dog chases mudball, lion bites the thrower. Now how can you see Deshan? This is why 10 citations of ancient stories bring them up in 10 ways. You have to set forth the intent of those ancients before it can be called citation of the ancients. For example, Mahasattva Fu said, every night I sleep with Buddha. Every morning we get up together. If you want to know where Buddha is gone, just this talking voice is it. Observe how Guangsha cited this and said, this way Mahasattva Fu just recognizes radiant spirituality. Also, Lingguan became enlightened on seeing peach blossoms, and he said, ever since seeing peach blossoms once, I've never had another doubt. Zhuansha said, quite right, indeed. But I dare say the old brother isn't through yet. Tell me, where is his intent? Zudo is just like the people of old. First he cites the sayings of those two and says, though these two veterans skillfully trim the long and augment the short, they give up the heavy and go along with the light. Tell me, where is the trimming of the long and augmentation of the short? Where is the abandonment of the heavy and going along with the light? These two clearly check Deshan. Why does Zhu Dao, quoting them, then say, if you want to see Deshan, this still won't do? Zudo subsequently still just wants to see Deshan, but this bit is still hard. Later on, people have misinterpreted, saying, Faiyan and Yuan Ming were just trimming the long and augmenting the short, giving up the heavy and going along with the light, just making it into a billboard. What connection is there? Zhu Do brings this up and says, what is Deshan like? He is like a general outside the castle grounds, with prestige and authority. Because he has a sword, even what should be stopped isn't stopped. Because he has a sword, even when what should be stopped isn't stopped, it still doesn't bring on disorder. There are also those, not few, who misunderstand Zhu Do bringing it up this way. Having brought it right up before you, why does he also say, do you want to know the Korean monk? He is just a blind fellow bumping into a pillar. Tell me, where is the monk's blindness? People often interpret subjectively, saying, when that Deshan said, where are you from? He should have immediately rustled his seat cloth. If you are so ignorant, Deshan will not let you go. Now tell me, ultimately, where is the monk's blindness? Let's practice meditation. Okay, let's share the merits. May all the merits that we have done till now be dedicated and shared out towards all sentient beings. May all sentient beings rejoice and share in our merits. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sehr wacker, ja.